Many people have misconceptions about what is and is not Social Security. And the problem with that is they base their decisions about how much and when they're going to claim based on the facts as they know it. In this video, I want to break through some of those facts that are completely wrong so that you don't make a costly mistake for your household. But before we get there, click on the button below to subscribe to my channel. I have over 30 years of experience in this business. We specialize in Social Security, and I want to make sure I share with you and your friends what it is you should and should not be doing with regards to Social Security and how to pursue the retirement that you deserve. Now, I talk to a lot of very smart people. When it comes to Social Security, there's 567 different claiming strategies. We only have retired once, most of us, right? When do you take it? How do you maximize the income? Which strategy do you take? Do you defer it? Do you take it early? All of these come into account. So let me share with you a very quick story about a friend of mine who's an attorney. Been retired for a number of years. His wife is a number of years younger than he is. And he's working with an advisor. We were just happening to have a conversation the other day. And he was sharing with me some things, and we happened to come upon the topic of Social Security. And I said, so, what are you doing? And he says, well, when he claimed, I said, well, your wife, is she getting her spousal benefit? And his response was, I didn't know she was eligible for one. And I said, you are working with an advisor, right? He said, yeah, I am, but he never said anything about that to me. Now, unfortunately, in our industry, a lot of advisors are not highly educated on the topic of Social Security, so they sort of steer away from it so they don't look ignorant about it. This is why we have 7 different calculators for our clients. It's so important to address this. But if you do have an advisor and you are at or into retirement and you have some Social Security questions, make sure you're asking them whether or not they are astute, whether they have the background to give you that type of information. Because again, you could be the smartest person within your own industry, but when it comes to Social Security, it's a completely different animal. So let me share with you 7 different facts you need to be aware of that may or may not be true. So this is not as much a fact as it is a behavior. Unfortunately, when people are eligible to claim as early as they can at age 62, they do so. In a recent study by Jackson, what you can see here, based on a study done back in August of 2017, that almost 56% of people who are eligible to take it at 62 do. Another handful take it at 63 and then at 64. But this could cost you tens of thousands of dollars in your household income. Could be upwards of a couple of $100,000 over your lifetime household income if you're not making the right choice. You can go to the video here about why it might be too costly if you take Social Security at the age of 62. Now, the second fact that people go off of, and it sometimes is part of the decision as to why they take it at age 62, is because they believe Social Security is going bankrupt. So let's talk about that for a moment. So the question is, will Social Security be there for me? So as we take a look at, based on the trust fund balance in a report done by the Social Security Administration trustees, we can see that basically there's the same amount of money coming in as is going out of the Social Security Trust Fund. And that's starting to move in the other direction, where a little bit more money is now going to start to come out than is coming in. And the long-term projections going back a couple of years ago was that about 80% of all of the guarantees that are made by the Social Security Administration Trust Fund will be able to be paid if nothing is done in the year of 2035. Or in other words, between here and 2035, they'll be able to pay out everything they promise, but beyond 2035, they will only be able to pay out approximately 80%. Now, the next fact that we have is that some people think that everyone gets the same amount. That is just not true. And the amount that you get is based on your top 35 years of working. And the formula that is in the Social Security system, you can take a look at that on your site if you've signed up for my statement. But what you'll find is, and the averages are most recently from Social Security, that the average individual gets $1,515 a month. But the maximum right now in terms of full retirement age is somewhere in the vicinity of about $3,100 on a monthly basis. So depending upon how much you earned and how much you contributed, that will give you a pretty good gauge in terms of what you can expect for your Social Security benefits. So in my new book, Don't Outlive Your Money in Retirement, the second chapter is devoted, by the way, to Social Security. So if you want to go to our banner and click on free chapter, I'll get you all you need to know with regards to Social Security. In this way, you'll have a little bit more of an understanding in terms of what you're going to get and some of the mistakes that you can hopefully avoid. So the next misconception or fact that people have is that full retirement is 65. Full retirement age for Social Security is different than what we think of the traditional retirement age that we have had embedded in us for so many years, that when you reach the age of 65, you then retire, which means therefore that your full retirement age for Social Security. So let me share with you what that actually is, okay? So full retirement age. If you were born between 1943 and 1954, your full retirement age is 66. If you were born in 1960 or later, your full retirement age is 67. In between, they prorated every 2 months, or in other words, I'm 1955, so my full retirement age is 66 and 2 months. Now, let me go into why this is so important, as we've already talked about how many are claiming at 62 when their full retirement age may be 66 or 67, and why it's important for many to delay benefits. So here on this slide, let's take a look at it. It's a little busy, but let's take a look at it. Let's assume that your full retirement age is 67, and if you claim it at age 67 in that second column, you get 100% of your benefit. Let's assume your benefit is $2,800 per month. So you can see your benefit without cost of living increase, if you take it at 67, is $2,800. Yet, if you go to the age of 62, the benefit without the cost of living adjustment is only $1,960. Yet, if you wait till age 70, that benefit becomes $3,472. It becomes even more powerful if you take into account cost of living increases, which are assumed at about 2.6%, where you assume that if at 2.6%, if you have a full retirement age of age 67, that if you started getting your checks at the age of 70, that check would start at approximately $4,263 versus the $1,960 you would have taken if you started at age 62. So as you can see, these facts or misconceptions can just compound on one another and cost you a lot of money down the road. The next item is the divorced benefit. So let me share with you a luncheon I had a while ago with a friend of mine. He's in his second marriage, but his first was to a very wealthy, highly paid woman many years ago. And now he's in his 70s and he's not even thinking about the ex. But when we talked about it, because he brought it up. I said, so are you getting the divorced benefit from her? Because you're making a lot less money. She was the primary worker. Are you getting your benefit as a divorced worker? Well, the bottom line was that after our luncheon, he went to his advisor and went to Social Security and found out he was eligible for about $1,500 a month for a divorced benefit. So that was a very good lunch for him. So let me take you to my slide for just a minute to share with you what the rules are for the divorced spouse benefit. Now, first of all, you had to be married for 10 years or more, and he was. And the person receiving the divorced spouse benefit is currently unmarried. The ex-spouse has to be at least 62 years old. And if the divorce was more than 2 years ago, the ex-spouse does not need to have filed for benefits. So make sure that if you are divorced, that you know what your rights are and what you can collect. The next item also deals with the divorced benefit, because I talk to a lot of people who have this misimpression that if they do collect off of their ex, that somehow it impacts their ex. So let me take you to my screen for just a moment. Now, as you can see here, that more than one ex-spouse can receive benefits from the same worker's record. And the benefits paid to one ex-spouse do not affect those paid to the worker, the current spouse, or other ex-spouses. So if you think about this for a moment, Larry King was married 7 different times. Each one of those exes, if the marriage had lasted at least 10 years, could collect, and none of them would impact any of the other exes or Larry King. Now, finally, some people are unaware of, and some even think, and I've heard some people say, it's illegal to tax your Social Security benefit. But the reality is, and here's a surprise for some, that Social Security benefits can be taxable. And for most people that I speak with, they are. So let me take you to the table for just a moment. So as you can see here, what is driving the taxation of benefits is what is called provisional income. And provisional income equals your adjusted gross income plus 1/2 of your Social Security benefit plus any tax-exempt interest, which is typically municipal bond income. So if you're filing married jointly and your provisional income is over $44,000, then up to 85% of your Social Security benefit can be subject to tax. If you're single, that number is $34,000 for your provisional income in order for up to 85% of your Social Security benefit to be taxed. So in order to make sure that you don't step on some of these costly landmines that could cost you thousands of dollars, make sure you go to our playlist.